All right, so I think we can get started. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Just to start us off, one quick logistical note. We will be recording tonight's presentation for those who couldn't attend, and we'll disseminate the recording through the community. So with that, we just wanted to start it off by introducing ourselves. My name's Casey Geddes. I lead patient advocacy for Relay's Vascular Malformation program. This means I've had the opportunity to meet and work with a lot of the patient advocacy groups, the advocates, and individuals in the community over the past year since we started our program on vascular malformation, and I'm really looking forward to meeting more as we go forward. Tonight, I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Brenton Marr and Sonia Singh, and so I'll pass it to Brenton.
Thanks, Casey. Hi, everyone. I'm Brenton Marr. I'm the head of clinical development at Relay Therapeutics, and that means I lead the teams that create and help run Relay's clinical trials. I'm a pediatric hematologist oncologist by training, and I've spent my career trying to use genetics to find new therapies for patients. I'll also pass it to Sonia on the line.
Thanks so much, Brenton. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Singh. I'm also trained as a pediatric hematologist oncologist, and I'm currently the medical monitor for the vascular malformation clinical trial we'll be speaking about. My main role is staying in close touch with our clinical sites to monitor participant safety and generally how they're doing on study.
Thanks both. So tonight we're going to give you an overview of Relay, but really spend most of our time talking about our PIK3CA-driven vascular malformation program. As most of you are probably aware, earlier this year we started a clinical study for vascular malformations called the Re-Inspire study, where we're evaluating the investigational drug 2608. After our presentation this evening, we're going to leave time for a live Q&A as well. So with that, Brenton's going to start us off.
Sure. Thanks a lot. So first, a word of introduction. Relay Therapeutics was founded in 2016. We're a small biotech company that focuses on discovering and developing new medicines for rare disease and oncology communities with significant unmet needs. We are based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and although we are based in the US, our trials are global with clinical trial sites across the world. We have about 200 employees, which each bring their expertise to the hard work of discovering new medicines. And Relay scientists have developed new tools to make the drug development process more efficient and effective. We do this by combining wet lab experiments and computational tools like AI simulations to develop new medications for patients and patient groups that have been historically difficult to treat. We have 3 ongoing clinical trials. You see there on the left, 2 in breast cancer. The first was started in 2022, as well as our vascular malformation trial, which started earlier this year. And both of these trials are looking at the investigational therapy RLY 2608, which we'll be going into in much more depth further down. We also have earlier stage products in oncology and rare genetic diseases, which we'll not be talking about today. So before we get into our trial, I wanted to take a step back and talk more broadly about PIK3CA-driven vascular malformations, which is the focus of our clinical trial. So you can see right here that PIK3CA-driven vascular malformations are a type of vascular malformation which is caused by a mutated or changed PIK3CA gene. And these fall into several categories, as you see there: PIK3CA-related overgrowth spectrum, or PROS, lymphatic malformations, as well as other vascular malformations. PROS include several syndromes or conditions, including such Klippel-Trenaunay, CLOS, FAVA, MCAP, FIL, and more. And up to 100% of patients, with some rare exceptions, have a mutation in PIK3CA, and this is true for about 80% of lymphatic malformations. And there are also other vascular malformations, including venous malformations and cerebral cavernous malformations, and others that also can have the PIK3CA mutation. These vascular malformations can also be driven by other mutations in genes known as TIE2, AKT, and mTOR as well, but these are not really the focus of our studies. The important thing is to note is that these mutations are typically found by sequencing the affected tissue. So before diving too deeply into PIK3CA, I just want to take a step back and talk about the PI3 kinase AKT pathway. As you may know, this pathway is important in everyone's cells for normal growth and development. And it's made up of an alphabet soup of different proteins. You see here listed TIE2, PIK3CA, also known as PI3 kinase alpha, P10, AKT, mTOR, all these are proteins which are critical for the functioning of this pathway. But when the proteins in this pathway are mutated, they don't function correctly, and that can lead to vascular malformations. And that's why there have been drugs designed to develop to target this pathway, such as alpelisib and sirolimus, which both targets different parts of this pathway. Today, we'll talk more about RLY-2608, which is what's the drug that Relay Therapeutics is developing which targets this pathway in a different way than these other agents, a mutant selective way. So I've mentioned PI3 kinase and PIK3CA a few times now. I just want to be really clear about the terminology here. PIK3CA is a gene, which means it's the blueprint for a protein, PI3 kinase alpha, that's important for the functioning of the pathway we just talked about. It's important for growth and metabolism. And as I mentioned, everyone has these proteins, which are important for these functions. However, mutations or changes in the PIK3CA gene can lead to proteins that don't work properly, and these are called mutated proteins, and these mutated proteins are overactive and can lead to vascular malformations and overgrowth. These mutations typically occur during fetal development and are not usually inherited. To note, people living with vascular malformations have both a normal and mutated PI3 kinase alpha protein in different parts of their body, and this is known as mosaicism. That refers to the fact that some tissues have the mutation, but not others. And ideally, of course, you'd want to block the mutated PI3 kinase alpha protein, but leave the normal PI3 kinase alpha functioning, because that's important for your body. It's important to note that distinction because the first PI3 kinase alpha therapy, like alpelisib, is not mutant selective, meaning it blocks both the mutated and the normal form of PI3 kinase alpha. And blocking the normal protein is what leads to side effects such as increased blood sugar, also known as hyperglycemia, diarrhea, rash, mouth sores, and more. And these side effects can limit the dose of how much a person can take of this drug, and this can limit the effectiveness of these agents. And just to be clear, this is an overview of how non-mutant selective inhibitors work, and is not intended to be descriptive of any individual personal experience with these drugs. Relay's investigational drug, called RLY-2608, is the first drug that specifically targets the mutated form of PI3 kinase alpha while inhibiting the normal protein to a lesser extent. And by hitting the normal protein to a lesser extent, we hope to reduce side effects compared to the non-mutant selective therapies. And by blocking the mutated protein more selectively, we hope to provide more effective treatment over the non-mutant selective therapies. It's important to note that we have just started our trial in vascular malformations. So we are very early in that effort right now. This animation shows how RLY-2608 was designed to block mutated PI3 kinase alpha while limiting the impact on a normal protein. You can see in the animation on the left, this is the normal PI3 kinase protein moving on and off the cell membrane, shown at the bottom. On the right, however, you can see the mutated PI3 kinase alpha protein is abnormally stuck to the cell membrane and overactivated, and that's represented by this continuous lightening that you see there. And this abnormal activation leads to vascular malformation and overgrowth. Using cutting-edge experimental and computational tools, we were able to understand the different movements of the normal and mutated proteins. And this led us to identifying a novel pocket which opens up more frequently on the mutated PI3 kinase alpha protein compared to the normal protein. This means that RLY-2608 binds this pocket on a normal protein more often, blocking its activity. And in contrast, since the pocket is mostly closed on the normal protein, RLY-2608 binds less, allowing normal activities of the protein to continue. Non-mutant selective inhibitors like alpelisib bind to PI3 kinase alpha in a different way, which is similar to both the mutant and normal proteins, which is why it inhibits both equally. And this is how RLY-2608 achieves mutant selectivity, aiming to reduce side effects and increase effectiveness. As a reminder, we are early in the evaluation of RLY-2608 in patients with vascular malformations. We have, however, been studying RLY-2608 in individuals with breast cancer, and we have seen encouraging interim results from our breast cancer study, which we shared in May of this year. And of note, individuals living with advanced breast cancer tend to be older and sicker than the average person living with a vascular malformation, and that can impact the side effects that occur. And of course, breast cancer and vascular malformations are different diseases, and that can also impact both the safety and the efficaciousness of the drug. But perspective
Yeah.
one. So as you can see on the red bar on the left, RLY-2608 in red had fewer grade 3 or severe side effects compared to historical alpelisib results in a separate trial for increased blood sugar, increased blood sugar, diarrhea, rash, and mouth sores, with most side effects considered mild or moderate, grade 1 or grade 2. Additionally, on the right, you can see what's called a waterfall plot. Each one of these vertical bars represents a change in a patient's tumor. And what you see here is that 81% of tumors shrank on the study. Though we have just started our clinical trial in vascular malformations and therefore do not have data in patients to share, we have also researched RLY-2608 in vascular malformation mouse models. The graph on the left compares the size of PIK3CA mutated vascular malformations in mice that received no drug, that's the vehicle shown in gray, compared to alpelisib in pink, as well as 2 doses of RLY-2608 in blue. What you can see here is that in the vehicle, the vascular malformation lesions in these mice continue to grow, though eventually leveling off. You can see alpelisib in pink modestly shrinks the size of these lesions, but both doses of RLY-2608 is effective at shrinking these tumors greater than alpelisib. On the right, we examined these mice for increased insulin induction. Increased insulin is a sign of high blood sugars, and you can see every dose of RLY-2608 shown in blue had lower insulin induction than alpelisib, even at the highest doses tested. We do want to acknowledge, of course, that this is a mouse model and it has its own limitations and may not replicate exactly in individuals. So this leads us to our recently opened clinical trial, which is called the Re-Inspire study. I will pass it over to Sonia to talk about the study.
Thanks, Brenton. So the Re-Inspire trial is evaluating RLY-2608, which is an oral drug that's taken daily in eligible individuals living with PIK3CA-driven vascular malformations, which includes PROS, lymphatic malformations, and other subtypes. We anticipate enrolling about 280 individuals across the multiple parts of the study. The trial is currently open across multiple sites in the US, and we're expanding globally over the course of the next year. We expect to have sites in Australia, Canada, the UK, and in the EU, including sites in Belgium, Spain, and Italy. And we're looking to open sites in additional countries in the European region. The timing for each country and site will vary, of course, as this depends on approval from each individual country and individual site. However, we'll continue to keep the community informed and updated as countries and sites are opening. The trial is currently enrolling individuals aged 12 and up, and once we have enough data in this age group, we'll aim to open the trial to children 6 and older, and eventually to children 2 and older. Of course, the timing of when each age group opens will depend on the data that's been collected, and that's particularly the safety data. So in total, there are 3 parts in the study. I'm going to focus on parts 1 and 2 today, as these will be the first parts to enroll participants. Part 1 is evaluating the safety profile of RLY-2608, and it'll determine the best dose or doses of RLY-2608 that balance benefit and side effects. Part 2 of the study will continue to collect safety data and also effectiveness, evaluation of effectiveness of the recommended dose or doses that are found during Part 1. And to note, participants will only be enrolled in one part of the study, either in Part 1, 2, or 3. But participants can stay on the trial as long as they and their doctor determine it's in their best interest or until the trial ends. Endpoints in clinical trials are measurements that are being taken to look at the effect of the investigational medicine being tested. So in parts 1 and 2 of our trial, the primary focus is to identify the appropriate dose and to monitor safety. To note, there is no placebo in parts 1 and 2, so everyone enrolled will receive RLY-2608, just at different doses. We'll also be assessing how effective RLY-2608 is by measuring changes in vascular malformation, specifically lesion size as seen on MRI, as well as importantly, the impact symptoms based on patient-reported and clinician-reported outcomes. And we're continuing to work with the community to improve how outcomes are measured in our trial. Interested individuals will work with a study doctor to determine if they're eligible for the study, but I wanted to review a few of the key inclusion criteria that are shown here. So individuals must have a clinical diagnosis of vascular malformation, such as a PRO syndrome or condition, or a lymphatic malformation, and they should have also a documented PIK3CA mutation through genetic testing. However, since individuals diagnosed with a PRO's malformation, syndrome or condition, or a lymphatic malformation are very likely to have a PIK3CA mutation, some may be eligible to participate in the study, even without a confirmed genetic test. To note, there are only a few or a certain number of spots for individuals without genetic confirmation. So this conversation for potential eligibility without a genetic confirmation should be discussed with a study doctor. Someone would not be eligible for the trial if they have other mutations causing their vascular malformation, and that includes TIE2, PIK3R1, NRAS, and others, as you can see in the pink box. And lastly, individuals who have received previous treatment, such as alpelisib or sirolimus, are eligible for the study. If you're interested in talking to a study doctor to learn more about the trial and to find out if you're eligible, you can reach out to an open site. We currently have 13 sites in the US open, and I'll briefly walk through these sites that are currently open, but we will also provide a link to a list of where these sites can be found, and that'll be continually updated as well, so you don't have to scramble to take notes. So the sites include in Arkansas, we have Arkansas Children's Hospital with Dr. Query. In California, we have 3 sites, the University of California, Los Angeles with Dr. Chang, University of California, San Francisco with Dr. Winger, as well as Stanford with Dr. Tang. In Colorado, we have Colorado Children's Hospital with Dr. Nakano. In Georgia, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta with Dr. White. In Massachusetts, Boston Children's Hospital with Dr. Liang. In Minnesota, Mayo Clinic with Dr. Al-Huniti. In Missouri, Washington University in St. Louis with Dr. Sisk. In Ohio, we have 2 sites, Cincinnati Children's Hospital with Dr. Hamill, as well as Cleveland Clinic Children's with Dr. Kelly. In Texas, we have Texas Children's Hospital with Dr. Jacobas. And in Wisconsin, we have University of Wisconsin with Dr. Drolet. So although most of these sites are at children's hospitals, many of them are happy to see adult patients, as we've noted on the slide, and sites can also provide more information about their individual policies. More sites in the US will be opening throughout this year and in 2026. And as mentioned before, we'll be expanding globally and expect to have sites in Australia, Canada, the UK, and in the EU as well. So we're working to get sites open as soon as possible and anticipate a few countries outside the US having a site open by the end of the year, with other countries having sites open through 2026. And as mentioned, we'll continue to keep the community updated as we move forward. You can also request more information about our study by emailing relay@clinicaltrials@relaytx.com. You can also learn more and always find an updated list of active sites at our clinical trial website, which is reinspirestudy.com. And we have the website URL and a QR code that links directly to the website shown on this slide. And then finally, in addition to having an updated list, the website also has details on the study itself and more information on PIK3CA-driven vascular malformations.
Thanks, Sonia and Brenton. So before we go into the Q&A, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for joining us this evening and listening, and also take a moment to thank the patient advocacy groups in the community for their partnership since we started this program a little over a year ago. With that, we'll go into our live Q&A. And so we're going to do the Q&A via the Q&A feature of Zoom. So you can find the icon at the bottom of your Zoom. If you don't see the icon, if you click the More button, which is the circle with the 3 dots in it, you'll be able to find the feature that way. So as everyone's just thinking of their questions, I'm going to pull it up on my end as well. Okay. And as those first questions are going in, just want to note what you're seeing on the screen here is just our email address that Sonia had mentioned, clinicaltrials@relaytx.com, that you're welcome to reach out to at any time, along with our study website. So we did actually get our first question in, and the question is there any data on the side effects of hair loss?
So this is thank you so much for the question. This is a frequently asked question. We, as mentioned, just started our vascular anomaly, vascular malformation trial, so don't have any data from that study, but we have studied this in many patients with cancer, and so far hair loss has been uncommon. It hasn't made our common adverse event tables, and so far it's not something that the patients on that side have been concerned about.
Thanks, Brenton. And as Brenton and Sonia mentioned, obviously we understand vascular malformations is a different disease and we'll continue to monitor as we go forward with our clinical trial. All right. Another question came in, and this is something we get asked actually frequently as well. This person asks if they have never gone to one of the sites that we've listed, are they still able to reach out to that site?
Sonia, you want to take that one?
Sure, happy to. So good question. And the answer is yes, you are able to go to a clinical trial site where you have not been seen before. The only thing to be mindful about is whether your age range applies to that site. So that's something you can reach out directly to the study team to learn more about their policy around age.
A question came up about how individuals can learn more about sites that might open up in the future, particularly in locations outside of the US. So I think, as mentioned, you can reach out to Relay via our email, clinicaltrials@relaytx.com, with any specific questions. And additionally, we will continue to update our the list, that is on reinspirestudy.com. And there'll be always an active list of sites that are currently active there. But please feel free to reach out and we can talk more about additional countries. There was a question about someone's daughter is a year and a half old and wanted to ask about, right now we mentioned the trial is only 12 and up, if you could just elaborate at all about timing for 12 and under.
That will depend much on the data that we see. The trial is designed to move seamlessly from the older groups 12 and up to 6 to 12 to 2 to 6, but we do take an approach that we do want to see how the safety and the efficacy looks in older children before opening up to the next group below. So it's hard to give an exact estimate of when that will open, but it's essentially when we and the investigators in the study feel that the data justify opening it in that age range.
Thanks, Brenton. Another question came in asking about an individual has had trouble accessing and being able to access genetic testing. Is that something that is available via the trial?
That is something that we're looking at, both for patients, as Sonia mentioned earlier, patients with PROS or lymphatic malformations can enroll on the trial without genetic testing, and then we can test retrospectively if the patient has tissue. We are also looking into ways where we might be able to provide testing outside the trial, but nothing is officially announced yet.
The question says that in the preclinical data that was shared, the doses are higher than that it was compared to in alpelisib. Is there a plan to do a direct comparison?
This is a very good question. So I would say that it's hard to compare different drugs' doses to each other. It's a little bit like apples to oranges. What the effective dose is for one drug may be completely different for a similar drug that serves the same purpose. I mean, one example could be, the dose of Motrin could be very different than the dose of for Tylenol, for example. So it's not that they should be compared. You should look at basically the side effects at that particular dose and the effectiveness of that dose of that medication versus the other.
The question came up are we looking at any clinical trial sites in Asia?
At the moment, I mean, we are always looking at different sites globally. Right now, we open up sites in different waves. And initially, other than Australia, Other parts of Asia are not currently in the site profile, but as the program expands, we may always consider different geographies.
A question asked around clarification. Could you just clarify that PIK3R1 is not eligible for the trial?
It is not, unfortunately.
Question came in around, has there been any data currently around the impact on fertility?
Right now, those studies have not been performed yet. They would typically be done later in the drug's development life cycle. That being said, for PI3 kinase inhibitors in general, for everything in this class and any related drugs, we recommend that people do not get pregnant while actively taking the drug. Whether or not this has impacts, after you pause a drug is something that's not been studied yet.
Is it anticipated if the therapy is successful that it would be a daily therapy for life?
I think it's too early to say. I think different we speak to physicians in this field, there have been different patterns of use. We do know that sirolimus, when people use it, often they use a high dose initially and then they go to a lower dose, and sometimes they're able to get off in the future. I think people are still trying to figure that out for alpelisib. I think that is something that we don't know yet and would have to come with time.
So this person's mentioned that they've had both debulking and sclerotherapy previously. Are they still eligible for the trial?
Sonia, you want to take that one?
Yep, happy to. It's a good question. So patients who have had previous procedures such as debulking or sclerotherapy are eligible for the study, provided they've had a washout period. So a certain time has to have elapsed since they're able to enroll on study from the timing of that procedure, which is about 28 days. And then also you would discuss your eligibility with your study doctor based on the lesion itself and whether there's been progression. So ideally, it should have shown growth since the timing of the procedure.
A question came in is that if someone lives near a country, but perhaps not in a country that ultimately has a site, are they able to potentially go to a site in another country?
It's possible. I think it very much depends on that site's policies in taking international patients. So it's hard to say completely yes or no for any particular site. I think it's a conversation with the site you would be going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to tag on to that is that, as we mentioned, we'll continue to update the website with the active list in the different countries. And so at that point, there will be contact information for the sites that might be in those additional countries. All right, next one that came in says, just to clarify, you've mentioned a lower limit of age on the trial, currently 12 and up, hope to expand in the future. However, is there an age limit on the upper end to the trial?
Sonia?
Sure. So there's no age limit on the study.
Thanks, Sonia. And a couple of questions have come in asking if there's a way to be notified when the trial potentially opens to younger individuals or to other locations. So I think just two notes on that. One is that we will notify the community. We also will notify the physicians and sites, so they will be aware when those potential younger cohorts open up and the additional sites in other countries. If you have a specific question, also I'd recommend if you reach out directly to us, we can have a conversation about that as well. For the although we do not know the timing of the potential, but we can talk more about that. All right, I'm just going to flip to another tab just to check if there's some additional questions in there. There's okay. Two questions have just come in asking if we're able to say anything about the number of participants or how they're doing currently on the trial.
No, unfortunately, we can't say anything right now. It's very early on, but we do hope to be giving updates in the future when there's enough data to talk about. All
right, so I'm flipping through and that looks like all of the questions that have come in so far. Just give it another 30 seconds or so, just if anyone wants to ask any last question, we're happy to take it. All right. Oh, okay. Oh, we got another one came in asking how long the study is anticipated to last.
That can be answered two ways, like how long will the study itself be open, or it could also be answered for any particular participant, how long would they be on the study? The second one's, I think, an easier question to answer, which is patients can stay on the study as long as they and their physician think they're benefiting from study, as long as the study stays open. That goes back to the first question, how long will the study stay open? That depends, honestly, on how patients are doing on the study. If it looks like patients are doing really well or collecting information, then we'll move through all the parts of the study, parts 1, 2, and 3, and that will likely take the course of a number of years. The exact number is hard to say right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think that's all the questions that have come in. If we did, for some reason, miss your question, or if you have any question that you think about in the future, please feel free to reach out to us.